of sweet potato soup.
Yeah, we all you. Doesn't seem appropriate for she goes to turkey.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Chef Night.
We're excited to have you guys all with us tonight. And Chef Jude, welcome.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing today?
The star of the show.
Really? Thank you.
Yes, indeed. And tonight, what the heck? We got some duck lero.
Yeah, we have a classic that you're always afraid to order and you're always afraid to make it. So
I'm not afraid to order it. I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
We don't make it at home though, so it's nice that we're gonna make it in our kitchen.
Now that I saw these perfect little duck breasts, I said, where the heck did he get the duck breasts?
It was a hard hunt, but we ended up with them.
Did you have a duck call?
Luckily enough.
Okay.
All right, and then we're gonna have a pumpkin old fashioned.
Ooh.
Traditional for, October, so I think that's perfect, something festive
With a little twist, yeah,
with a little twist.
absolutely.
Like the
Speaking of twist, do we have everything mise en place?
Yes,
We
what
do
we
have
do?
everything mise en place. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that our duck breasts are thawed out. If they are still a little frozen, you can keep them in your Cryovac pack and put them in water. If they're pliable, which means that they're really, really cold, but we can still work the breast so it's not firm when we go to press it in the Cryovac. If it's slightly firm but still pliable, means it can move like such. We can pull them out and we'll be okay with that. So they're not frozen technically. We do want to make sure that they are at room temperature. So when we're working with duck, two things: wash up.
Okay.
Right? Dealing with poultry, we always want to make sure that we're not going to cross-contaminate anything. When dealing with poultry, this is extremely susceptible to salmonella, so we want to make sure that our workspace is clean and collected, so that way we don't cross-contaminate anything. As far as our pots go, we have a sauce pot for our sauce. We are going to iron skillet our duck breast because we're able to get that char. I like this, like I said before, the heavy gauge to it. We're going to be able to create a really, really nice sear and an even crisp to our duck breast. This is going to allow us to control the temperature of the flame a little bit better.
Perfect.
If you don't have a cast iron skillet, no big deal. You just want to monitor how fast your duck is cooking. Okay. Or
What's an alternative to this in what I would have?
you could use this guy right here.
Okay, so
So
like
space is the proponent. We want to make sure that there's enough space in there.
okay.
We want to make sure that we're not going to overcrowd our pans. I have our oven on because for the sake of it, we're not going to finish our duck in the pan. We're going to sear. We're going to sear the other side. So we're going to render the fat. When we render the fat, what we're going to do is we're going to allow the fat to sit in the pan like bacon and cook and cook and cook until it's crispy. So we're going to extract all the fat from the skin of the duck breast because there's a lot of fat in there, which is going to internally cook the duck breast from that fat side down. And then we'll just flip it over and sear, and then we'll finish right in the oven really, really quickly. Just because our pan's not going to hold all 6 of our duck breasts at home, 4 would fit in there just fine. You could just pop this guy in the oven, and it's for a very, very short period of time.
And what's the temperature of the oven?
I have the oven on at 450 right now. So for time's sake, right, if you're not worried about eating at the same time as the rest of us, which is not a problem, 350 is a good temperature.
Okay.
You don't want to be too hot because we don't want to cook it too fast. Duck is something that's very, very lean. We want to make sure that we're not going to dry it out. Also with duck breast, we want to serve it medium rare, which scares a lot of people. When you serve poultry that has pink or red in it, it scares people. Oh, it's not done. You want to make sure that your duck breast is reddish, pink for sure, because if not, it'll be dry and you're not gonna like it.
Okay, good to know,
Duck is also something that you might not like it no matter which way it's cooked.
because it's different flavor.
It's a different flavor. It is very gamey, so you will taste that. In this classical dish that we're gonna make, we are gonna be able to kind of take away some of that gaminess by the orange sauce that we're gonna make.
I'm excited to see how.
And then we have a nice pot here for our good old fashioned minute rice, since this was a last minute decision, but we couldn't just give you duck on a plate, so we're gonna
We're gonna
serve it
have rice
on
with that.
top some white rice.
Perfect.
This is for our sauce. So this is a good sized sauce pot, what we're gonna do. And then we can go from there.
Wonderful.
Uh,
Let's get cooking.
Yeah, let's get cooking. So first things first, what we want to do is we want to score our duck breasts and let them sit out for just a moment, right? We want to allow them to come to room temperature. If they are still firm when we're trying to work with them, it's still colder, not frozen, but colder in the middle. We want to try to work that out a little bit. The reason being is we're going to render this fat. We don't want a lot of water into that pan because then it's just going to pop all over the place. Could
Good point.
possibly burn you. You don't want to do that. Do you want to run this underwater? You can. I don't recommend it. Anytime you run proteins or muscle, which are proteins, whole muscles, I should say, underwater, you lose the quality of the product. So you're washing away flavor, you're washing
Watering it
away
down.
nutrients, right? You are, in fact, adding water to the muscle, which just like us, same concept. If we add water to it by soaking it or thawing it out in running cold water, we're not doing it any favors. Leaving it out for a little bit is kind of your best round. If it's really, really frozen, you could defrost in the microwave in small increments of time so that way you're not going to cook the outside pieces and still have a frozen center.
Okay.
The reason we want to make sure that it's at room temperature as possible is so that it evenly cooks.
Right.
As we're rendering the fat, the heat from that fat or the pan is going to start cooking that duck breast slowly, and that's what we're looking to accomplish.
And we have an audience question.
Does this apply also when the protein is packaged and you run it underwater?
Yes, so if it is in a Cryovac package,
So if it's in
it'll
this package.
thaw. It's not going to wash away any nutrients, right?
You keep it in this.
If you keep it in this.
And typically what you could do too is you can put a bowl in your sink and you put cool water in
Yep.
the bowl and then you let it sit in there and then that will thaw, soften it.
And if this is frozen, just change your water a couple times because once you put the water in there, the water becomes colder. It takes longer to thaw.
Right.
If you put the water in there, let it sit, dump that cold water out, put more cool water in, and then you go from there. So if you did that a couple times, usually works perfectly. I usually shrimp super fast. Put them in a bowl, drop the water in there, dump all that water out, drop some water in there, let them sit for like 3, maybe 5 minutes,
Right.
dump that water out, put more water in. By that time, they're pretty much thawed out and ready
Right.
to go.
And I think the key is it has to be
Sealed.
a sealed package.
That's what we want. Okay, so
Yeah.
with our duck breasts, we are going to take them out of our pack. We're going to lay them on our cutting board nice and flat. We're going to be scoring them. So we're going to be creating these cuts into here. And what we're wanting to do is we're just wanting to cut the fat, essentially. So we're just making these score cuts, not all the way down to the breast if possible, but enough into, see this, into the fat to where all the,
At least the fat is separating.
yep, so the fat will then release out these cuts. Also creates a better crisp to it. Also creates a vent for the heat of the pan to start cooking the breast. So as you saw, we just did a cross hatch on them. Your other one here. Just a nice little cut. 3, 4 across, all depends about evenly separated. So set that aside. Wash. We're gonna need our knife real quickly.
That cross contamination. Want
That's
to make
right,
sure
we
you're
don't-
very.
We don't want to do it at home. I am super diligent about it because I'm paranoid. I do not want salmonella, just from the stories that I've heard. I'm sure you guys have heard stories. You don't want to either, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's something that you definitely don't want. You're better safe than sorry. Does salmonella, is it on everything? We don't know. So it's easier to be safe than it is to be sorry. So I'm always super diligent about cleaning up my station, my washing my hands, anything after I deal with any type of poultry, because I want to make sure that no matter what happens, I'm safe, my family's safe, my friends are safe.
Good to know.
Okay,
I have a feeling we're all not that diligent at home, but it's good to remind us to be.
especially with chicken and poultry,
Okay.
especially that and ground meats. Everything else, don't cross-contaminate. Don't fillet your filet mignon steaks and then go cut your lettuce for your salad. Don't do that, right? Because if you're going to be cooking anything, so like let's just say we scored this and we're going to cut our garlic and our shallots on here. Could we do that? Yes, we could, because we're going to be cooking these pieces. The problem is if this doesn't reach 165 degrees and this is contaminated, so is this now. That's
Right.
why I'm super diligent about taking care of it. That way we don't have to worry about
And
it.
after
Right?
3 seasons, this is the first time we've talked about it. So I'm glad.
Well, we went into really, really deep depths about this one.
Right, which is good.
Touched on it when we dissected the whole chicken. but
Yeah, I guess we did.
That one
Yes, we
for
did.
sure, because that one gets a little messier than this. But you want to make sure that you're good to go.
Perfect. All right, now what?
So now we want to zest an orange. First and foremost, what we're going to do is we're going to take an orange slice. So we're just going to carefully take, we'll do a couple of these. These are going to be for our cocktail. This is what we're going to twist on our old fashioned. So we got a couple of these guys. And if you notice, we're hardly taking any of the pith, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what we want, our the zest, the outside, the small skin layer. The pith is the white.
Wait, got it.
Yep. And we don't want any of that really in, since see like this guy?
Yeah.
Barely any in there. That's what we really, really want. These are garnishes, so not too crazy about it. What we're getting is the zest when we go to ring it. Then the other zest. We have a zester. If you don't have a zester, you can simply,
Could choose a grater.
you could use a grater. You can cut carefully down the outside like this. And if you're not savvy with your knives, that's okay. You could use your cheese grater. This is your zester here, but you don't get very far with it. I
No,
don't
I
know
was
if you've
gonna say,
ever
I-
used this before.
It's like
You're
very little bit.
Spending more time cleaning it than you are
Pulling
getting
it out
the
of there,
zest, right? So if you use the smaller one and it's a light press, just barely pressing on there to where you can see all we're getting is just that outside layer, and we're actually getting zest, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I would recommend if you don't have one of these guys. This is a fine blade, which is what this is supposed to be, but it's not. And this guy will allow you to actually
And this is easier. I find this a lot easier.
way, yeah. And when do you use zest? I don't know. I just feel like we've been using a lot of zest in the last 3 years. So for me, I barely bought one for my house because I had one that you peel and it just takes the little rings off of there, and then you have to cut that up anyway. This one will allow us to get that fine zest that we're looking for.
Hey, Chef, can you
Yes.
substitute the orange for grapefruit?
So as far as a recipe standpoint goes, no, As far as the technique goes, yes. The grapefruit zest is not going to be as pungent as the orange. The orange is going to be sweet and acidic at the same time, as opposed to the grapefruit is going to have a bitterness to it
That would make sense.
that you would have to add a lot more sugar. I found that out making grapefruit cello. So like limoncello, the lemon's a lot sweeter than the grapefruit. I had to add a lot more sugar into my grapefruit cello, not knowing that how bitter the peel actually was. So if that's the flavor you were going for, you can most certainly do so. You just want to make sure that it is going to be a lot bitter to your palate. So you just are going to have to add more sugar to that.
Good to know.
So these guys, make sure that all you're doing is making a pass, a couple maybe, just depends on how much you're forcing it. We're trying to make sure that we're not getting into the pith at all and just really getting the outside layer, all that zest. And that's where all of our
Wow.
flavor comes from. Then,
It makes more than I thought. I mean, it really is.
yeah, it'll do a good amount. And that's why I said, if you go ahead and, I mean, we'll just demonstrate for the sake of demonstrating. But if you notice,
It's all sticking on there.
not a lot of zest came out of there.
Right.
So we spend more time cleaning it than we did actually. When we use this smaller side, we were actually able to collect the
More.
zest for our dish and not on our utensil, right?
Good to know, because I'll be cleaning that later.
We can rinse it now.
I'm just
You'll be
kidding.
fine. So we just make sure that we get pretty much all this that we need. We did both of them because we're going to make a little bit more sauce than everyone else. All right. Then for our orange segments, take off top, bottom. Then you're gonna run your knife down the side, like cutting a melon, and then you're gonna use the pith as your guide toward just taking off the skin. Because what we're gonna get is the segments. We're gonna want only the flesh of the orange for our sauce, and we're not gonna want any of the pith. A supreme would be the technical term.
Okay, you make that look so easy. Practice.
It is a lot of So then from here, as you see, our oranges in segments, right?
Yep.
So what we do is we find one side, we run our knife down all the way to the center, as you see, and then we go to the other side,
So you're literally cutting on the segments.
cutting them out. Yep.
Oh. Oh, cutting them out to
So-
make orange pieces.
Because we're trying to keep this piece out
Out. Oh,
because
gotcha.
that's bitterness that we do not want in our sauce.
What knife are you using, Chef?
I am using a chef knife. If you're not comfortable with that, you can use a smaller knife, like a paring knife. Whatever you're most comfortable with. For me, I use my chef knife for just about everything. So you see it, we are leaving all that pith on the inside
Mhm.
and just getting the segment or the supreme. Another method that you do this with is tomatoes to make concasse. And tomato concasse would be just the flesh of the tomato. So this is the same principle where we are taking just the flesh of the orange, not any of the byproduct, the trash. I feel like I should have been stewing this over the bowl the whole time and collected our orange juice. It's all right though. So look at how much discard we got. We didn't leave a whole lot of orange on there, which is good. But if you see our segments, we don't have a lot of rind.
No, we don't.
That's why we want to just take those out, because that's all the flavor. Any bitterness in there, then we're counteracting with more ingredients that we don't really need in the sauce. All right, so now we got our orange, our that. We can, let's go ahead and make our cocktail,
Okay.
since everyone likes to get that out. the
Get
way.
started with that.
That's
Hello,
right.
fun.
That's right. All right, so for our cocktail, we are going to need our shaker, our tomato puree. We're gonna need some bourbon. And then our chartreuse, right? There we go. Our orange flavored brandy. Fancy. These are gonna be for our sauce.
Oh, that's the sauce. Sorry about that. Is brandy for the sauce? What's that for that?
This is gonna be, no, this one's for the sauce.
Sauce. Okay.
So in here, usually our jigger, but I can do this.
We're improvising.
I
The
found one
jigger
right
is
here.
missing.
So we got an ounce counter on there, 1.5 ounces. So we're gonna double our batch. We'll make 3 ounces. This guy's gonna go into here. Do 1/2 ounce of this guy, so it's gonna be half of this guy. Oh, we're going ×2, so that'll be
The whole
a
thing.
whole ounce, yeah.
×2.
Our maple syrup, did we put that one away
Is
on
that there?
accident? Thought this one was honey. No, that's definitely syrup. This guy's gonna be a 1/2 ounce. Right. 2 tablespoons of pumpkin puree. 1. 2. Splash of bitters. And then do we have a fine mesh strainer?
You told me down there if I used to.
That's about as fine as it gets.
Yeah, this
You
one.
didn't have one in the,
One that's in the hole probably work better. That's
Oh,
okay.
the one that, the top,
there?
Yeah, yeah.
the top of the.
Do you need ice in there or no?
Yeah, we'll ice those guys if you want that.
Ice in there?
So then we got our ingredients in the shaker. So the mesh strainer, so the reason they're saying to use the fine mesh is so that it'll take out the puree pumpkin if there's any in there. So it's not thick when you drink it. I think we did a pretty good job at diluting that. These guys, and then these guys, what you do is you just make the twist over your drink so that all that zest pops in there. Garnish with something festive. We can't do that. Like such.
That works.
This guy, same thing. There you have it.
Excellent. All right. Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Enjoy. Okay, well, that's a little strong.
It's a little different. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm always like, okay, when they say the word old fashioned, you know, it's probably gonna be strong.
That is true.
You should know that right up front.
Yep.
What do you guys think? What do you think of this drink? I think it tastes very different than anything I've tried. What about you?
I think it needs a little more sweetness to it. If I had to say so myself.
I think it tastes like a lot of liquor.
Which
Definitely.
it's really,
It's a lot of that.
it's really all that it is.
Chef, did you double the pumpkin puree?
Yes.
Maybe we put a little extra syrup in there. Now, syrup going into the cold, is that good?
It'll be okay. Well, that's gonna be a little sweeter for you.
And a little more fat and calories, sugar. It's definitely sweeter.
That's what it means. But it's strong. So
It's a
you
strong
either
one.
You're gonna like it or you're not.
Exactly.
Can you add cinnamon to it?
You could, so that'll just help elevate the cocktail a little bit more. I don't think that I would add maybe in the shaker so it gets all around. Garnish with the cinnamon stick so that it sits in there and it'll absorb some of that flavors would be your better out, so that the cinnamon is more subtle and not go dominant flavor to the taste when you go to drink it. All right. Let's get our pans working here. We're gonna turn on our cast iron, get it on nice and hot.
Anyone try that at home? What do you guys think of that drink? Any comments? All right, strong?
It's definitely strong. I don't think, add more pumpkin if I had to recommend it, just so it'll cut some of that bourbon out of there. That's working.
Alright, getting
This
that
is gonna be working. So while we're waiting for our pan to get hot, one thing we can do is we're gonna make our slurry. Our slurry is cornstarch and chicken stock. Equal parts. The recipe's calling for a tablespoon and a cup. So we'll go ahead. I'm gonna do half a cup because I like mine to be a little bit thicker when we add it, and then we can add more chicken broth to the sauce as we're working. So just gonna whisk this together essentially. If you notice, it'll clump up in the bottom, but as the liquid mixes in, you're good. So slurry is basically, it's equal parts cornstarch to liquid. You can use water. You typically would like to add some kind of broth, because then it'll continue to add flavor to our sauces as opposed to cooking out the cornstarch. So when we add cornstarch to our sauces, you want to make sure that you do cook them. Basically bring it to a boil and then turn it down, let it simmer, so that way the starch flavor will evaporate essentially through the cooking process. Will cook out that starch flavor. If you thicken it right away and you're like, oh, that's good, and you turn it off, you're not going to taste any of the love that we just put in there. The cornstarch will then coat your palate so that that way you don't taste any of the other flavors.
Right,
So
don't
we
want
wanna
that.
Make sure that we cook that out. So got that going. Our pan here, ooh, yeah, that's ready to roll. I'm just gonna do a little tiny bit oil.
Bar.
This is just to help the skin not stick to the iron skillet.
And that's not much,
No, because you'll
just a
see,
little bit.
we're just gonna spread it around. Exactly. Yeah. I was trying not to dab it all in there so we take all that oil out of the pan.
Inside out.
Always, yeah. Don't try this at home. Well, all I'm doing is I'm trying to move the duck breasts around accordingly so that that way they're not crowded in the pan. If we overcrowd the pan, we're gonna not allow them to gain that crispiness that we're looking for.
Can you season the same way as chicken, Jeff?
The duck, you salt, pepper is really all you need. You don't want to go too crazy. If you want to go outside of the box a little bit and do, you know, ginger, coriander. If you want to go as far as like doing star anise, then you're getting into like a Chinese five spice, which would be fine for this type of dish because all those flavors would blend well together. But typically just a little bit of salt and pepper is fine, and we're gonna want to do that right now on our ducks on the breast side. So we'll grab that. So I'm gonna turn our heat down just slightly to a medium heat, and we're gonna keep an eye on our duck. But as you see, the fat is already starting to render out. So if we see right in here, we're already extracting that fat from the skin. So that's really what we're doing. And all we want to do is just monitor. We want to keep an eye on these things. We don't want to, if we start to see, it's mainly where we're at right now, we're not going to flip it over. If anything, we would just turn it in the pan so that that way this outside edges of these breasts can get the same crispness as the other side. So if we want to grab that tong in there, we'll take a look and see. So we're barely getting crispy, right? Barely brown. If we were searing, that would be a good color. I'm just going to turn these guys around just so that that way we can get that even crispness going. And as you see there, that's what I'm talking about. See that outside layer? Not getting it. So all we're doing is just spinning it into the pan so that that way it's able to do that. I'm going to turn our pan down just a little bit. I'm at like a medium low heat. Only reason being is now that it's hot in there, we want to make sure that we can keep a consistent heat throughout. Right. Instead of adding so much at one time and burning that skin, we don't want to do that. We want to render the fat. So we want to cook it a little bit slower and not at a high heat like we would if we were sauteing. Even like searing, how we're nice and high, really quick, really fast. This one is a lower temperature to allow the fat to be extracted from the skin and create that really, really crispness on that skin. So then we'll get our sauce going. I got a pan on.
Perfect.
Nice and hot. What we're gonna do here, a little bit of oil. And this is gonna be for our shallot and our garlic. So let's take a look at these guys and just check them out just to see. All right, so see how we're browning nicely.
Oh, it's looking good.
Yep. So we're just wanting to let them roll. We just want to make sure that we're browning evenly. See how we got a nice even brown there? I want to move this guy to one of these other ones that's not doing as well. You have your splatter skin. That's always a bonus. Those guys work really, really well. That's why we turn our heat down too, so that way we can contain that as best as possible.
Hey, Beth,
Yeah.
if you save the dust fat, what are other dishes that go well with it?
What's that?
If you save the dust fat, what's the dishes you do for?
Roasted potatoes. If you've never had duck fat French fries, I recommend it. If you ever see it on the menu, order it. You will not be let down. Okay. Yeah. So making, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say this: based eggs in duck fat, and you'll be amazed at what in the world is you see. There's something about the flavor profile that this fat adds to things that you just don't ever you never recognize it. So like I would take this with a bowl of red potatoes, some garlic, some fresh rosemary, salt, pepper, toss it in there and roast them. Whew, delicious.
Good.
So all we're doing is just sauteing our garlic and our shallot really quickly. There, yeah, we're getting real crisp.
That was great.
So you can see that we're still really tender in underneath there. Want to let those roll for a little bit longer. As you can see that we are slowly cooking up the breast. Now, is that all the way in the center? No, right? But this is giving us a generalization of how much of that breast is actually cooking. That's why he's coming in for a closer look. He's coming in for a spy view.
I was sending my drone, but I'm coming in person.
There you go. All right, then next we're gonna be adding, I want to say our orange juice. So orange zest, orange juice, rosemary. So now we're gonna add orange juice, our zest, our sherry vinegar. Since we're not gonna use sherry today, we're gonna use brandy, which is gonna be another flavor profile that's gonna go hand in hand with duck. You can use white wine in place of brandy or sherry vinegar. So these guys right here, maybe everyone got one of these guys right here, so you could replace your brandy with this, not a problem. I personally use stuff like this at home, cooking wise, red wine, white wine, instead of cracking open a bottle that you don't drink and you're gonna leave it in your fridge for when you use it again. I'd much rather use this so I can get this used up in a week, 10 days at most, right? I'm constantly deglazing, I'm constantly cooking with wine, whether it's red or white. So these guys work perfectly. All right, we're gonna we're gonna take a look at this here.
Look at how they're really coming along. I can tell they're puffing up.
Yep, and we can tell. So right here is a good indication. Be careful, Beth.
This is a lot of stuff.
Real crispy. Still a little bit more, but on the breast itself, we're starting to cook and get a little bit higher up into that breast. So we just want to be careful. And that's all just moisture from the meat itself that's falling out as we're squeezing it. So we're going to turn our heat down a little bit more since we are maintaining that temperature in there really, really good. We brought this to a boil. Reduce that down some. Just lower our heat. Then we're going to be adding our rosemary.
Obviously getting rid of the stems, any big stems.
Yep. And then just a quick chop on these guys. Nice little mince.
Smells great.
Our celery. So let's add our chicken broth to this mixture here. We're gonna let this reduce down. Keep it going. All right, for our sake, we're gonna turn these guys off right now because we're at like right where we want to be, nice and crisp. I don't want to flip them over just yet because I want to flip them over right before we put them in the oven. So I turned our heat off so that way they're going to continue to render in there. And then we're just going to flip them over, flesh side down, and then just pop them into the oven for 2 to 3 minutes, maybe 5 depends. But mostly it's looking about 3 minutes should be okay. We can see the fat coming out of the breast there. That's giving us a good indication of how long we would need to put them into the oven.
Yeah, you can see the
See this
shaping
here?
of it. Everything has changed.
Mm-hmm. So then we're going to add our arch nemesis, the rice. I highly recommend measure this out. Measure this out.
Knowing from experience.
Yeah, rice is.
Most of you got this package, we just didn't have enough. So follow the directions on the package, don't.
These are beautiful. These are time savers. They're effortless. 90 seconds and you're done. Right? So a quick, fast, and easy way. Everyone's on the go. Everyone's in the hurry.
It's good.
And not everyone has 20 to 25 minutes to watch their rice. You have to watch it. That's the key. It's not like risotto where you're constantly stirring, but you do have to stir. You do have to monitor. You have to make sure that it's not too hot, not hot enough.
Not sticky and watery.
Yeah, it's.
At the bottom.
I don't like it. I don't like it. It gets me every single time. So my purpose as a chef is to make the best rice that I can because I mess it up a lot. And it's a little running joke inside my house because I do mess up. Because I already know I don't measure.
Right.
I just do it. I'm like, all right. And then I'm off to whatever else and do something else, come back and stir. And then it's
Not the right
sushi
measurement.
rice.
Yeah.
And sushi rice doesn't go the same. So these guys, 2 to 1. This one's gonna give us a 1-to-1 ratio. But traditional rice, 2 to 1. So if we're gonna go 2, 3. 2. That might actually be enough. So let's just do 2. Stir. That guy will do its thing. This guy is reducing nicely. We want to keep it at a, not a rolling boil, but a simmer. So show you really quickly. Right here, we're at a rolling boil there. And we're at a simmer lower, lower, right there. Simmer where it's just bubbling. All right. So there's no.
Substitute the rosemary for thyme.
You could use thyme in this recipe. It's slightly different, but yes, goes very, very hand in hand with all the ingredients that we're doing. Okay, so for this, we're going to now flip our duck breasts. In our recipe, continue cooking in the pan. We are going to flash ours into the oven, allowing that to be nice and crispy. Yeah, that guy will work.
It's heavy and you got 2 ends.
All right, so we're gonna start our timer with 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, so that way we want to keep an eye on that, make sure that it's good to go. Our rice is coming up. Follow the instructions. The beauty about this is like with the minute rice, the ingredients are never ending. We can do cilantro lime. We could do roasted bell peppers. If we're doing duck a la orange, I mean, right now we could throw a little bit of soy sauce and red pepper into there and adds a little more flavor to our rice instead of just having plain old white rice.
Absolutely.
If you already have it open, utilize your chicken stock. Unless you already have another purpose for this, this is a great purpose for it.
In lieu of
The water.
the water.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just gonna add more flavor. Everyone likes white rice for the most part.
Mhm.
It all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. If you want to add more flavor, by all means, go right ahead and do so. If you were working with the star anise before and you still had one, then grind one up and you threw one in there, you would add that flavor to that rice.
Good idea.
What an elevated dish when we're all done, because if you ate that rice on its own, you'd be like, why is this rice? What's with this? You would never know and you'd never tell anybody. Just make sure you
It's a
pull it
chef
out
secret.
before you serve it, right? All right, so our rice is working. We got a timer on our duck breasts. We need to put our segments into
The sauce.
our la orange sauce. These guys will break up. I don't do them too soon because then they're just gonna be like mush mush. And then those are just gonna reduce down. It's gonna continue to extract the flavor and provide that really, really strong orange flavor to it. And right now, we're just at that simmering process. If you want to do your market update.
Sounds good. Steve, you're coming over? Well, before we get too far into it, we want to talk about next month. So Thursday, we're back to Thursday, our final for the year, November 16th. Come join us. We'd love for you guys to have us. Have mac and cheese with us. It's Gruyere mac and cheese. And then it is a bacon and a sweet potato soup. We haven't paired it yet with our drink, so that's going to be a surprise. But we'd love to have you guys join us. And this is on a Thursday. And we're going to kind of float, I think, next season between Wednesdays and Thursdays, just because we have a few things going on. So we're trying to make sure that everybody can attend. So really, where's a great place to buy right now where I can get a bit of a lower interest rate? I feel like I'm not getting a break.
Well, first of all, let me dispel 3 myths that we've got going on right now.
Okay.
When you're thinking about buying, you're going, oh my gosh, I just saw that rates are now at 8%. That's like the highest they've ever been in my whole life.
And I think people are feeling like that in their lives, because they might be
Over
younger.
the last 25 years, 7.8% has been the average. So just clear up that myth. Now, 7.8 is the average, but you can still buy down a rate. Let me give you a little mortgage hack. Imagine a 3-2-1, meaning you're getting 3% off the first year, 2% off the second year, 1% off the third year. So maybe it's a 5, 6, and a 7. This money is set up in an account that's kind of like a subsidy account. So the first year you get a really low rate, and let's say next year the rates go down. You have years 2 and years 3 subsidy that you can now apply to your refinance. So if rates came down to 7, you could apply those 2 numbers and get like a 5. So mortgage hack number 1, look into a 3-2-1 buy down. Ask us how that works and we'll help you. Here's another thing. This weekend I was out with a builder that had an anniversary home. You know what an anniversary home is?
No,
It
tell us
means that they pulled the permit a year ago. So the anniversary has passed and they're paying over 10% a month on the loan. So they gave a discount. This house was $781,000. They gave $131,000 discount. They bought down the interest rate to 5.5, which cost 10%, which was another $65,000.
A good contribution.
They paid $13,000 in closing costs, so they paid $209,000 on this house. It was a quick move in, which was a 25% discount. That's like getting a $400,000 house for $300,000. We know where those deals are. Now, here's the last thing. People are moving. Just because we're only going to sell 4 million homes this year, woe is me. In 2020, March and April and May, we only sold 4 million homes, not 6 million. Over the last 25 years, we've sold 4 million. It's only been the last 5 years that we kicked up to 5 and 6. So people are still moving. Now, here's why they're moving. We call it the 5 Ds. Diapers, divorce, diploma, diamonds, and downsizing. House is too big, you're going to downsize. Getting a divorce, you're going to make a move. Having a baby, you need the room. So people are still moving. So those are the 3 myths that people think, oh, no one's moving. Yes, they are. Rates are too high. No, we can buy them down. I can't get a good deal.
There's
Beth
great deals out
is
there.
the good deal queen. So guys, call Beth, ask her how we could, if you want to invest, take your below market interest rate at 2.5 or 3%. We can show you how to get an equity line of credit and buy some of these new homes that are under warranty that are still going up for sure, because there's a shortage of new homes.
Absolutely.
What happens when you have a shortage of anything? Prices go up. Last thing, shameless commercial. It's almost the holidays. If you go to Amazon, we're doing 2 for 1. So you get 2 coloring books for $15. Or if you're looking to fix a habit, change a habit, help someone with some habit that they're trying to kick for their whole life. Same thing, guys. Love to see you. Just go right on to Amazon. You can see we got a QR code. Oh yeah, baby. Latest and greatest. Thanks, guys. Back to the cooking.
Back to
Smells
cooking.
amazing.
And again, we want to help you build your wealth through real estate. So keeping your current home, keeping that low interest rate, and buying something else is a great opportunity for you today. And let's see where we are with the show.
Welcome back, guys.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for the great market update.
Thank you.
I just had our timer come off. I added 3 more minutes, so we did 6 minutes total in our oven.
Okay,
We pulled it out. We're in the resting period.
okay.
We're not taking a nap like we would with prime rib.
Yeah.
This is like, it's less than steaks. Steaks, you want to do 10 to 15 minutes rest period.
Okay.
These are going to be about 3, 5, 8, right? Depends on how much. 8 would be a great number. You could let them rest for 10. The longer you let them rest, the more the juices flow back into the meat to create an even cooking temperature from top to bottom.
Okay.
Do not cover. If we cover, we lose
The crispiness.
the crisp of the skin, and that's what we're really, really trying to achieve with this. So we got our rice. Our rice is just about ready too. Well, let's just turn that guy off and let it do its thing. All right, now we are ready. You can see that the segments that we added, or our orange supremes, aren't quite fully broken down, and that's good. That's what we want. If we added it right at the very beginning, or when we added our orange juice and stuff, we would have already just destroyed those all together.
Right.
So we don't want to do that. We're gonna now add our slurry, and if you see as it's set, it's
Separated.
separated. So we just want to make sure that we stir it back up. It's finicky working with this. Making sure that it's all off. Now, when we add this, we're going to want to whisk, stir, right? The reason being is it'll clump on you, and you do not want it to clump up. So see how thick we're getting it already?
Absolutely.
We'll stop for a second.
Right. You don't want to put too much in.
Correct.
You want to monitor it and make sure you have the product you're looking for.
Right, so to coat the back of the spoon, nappe, to make sure that we're just coating it. We don't want it to congeal over our duck breast. We want it just to coat our duck breast, right? So we're gonna bring this up to temp. Again, all we did is we're adding our chicken stock, just a little bit out of a time. So it's gonna be a good ratio there. Add a little bit of salt and pepper at this time. I did that right before we came back from our commercial break.
Okay, wonderful.
And then we're gonna allow this to come to a boil, and then pretty much ready to go. I have some more orange supremes that we're gonna add in right at the end, so we have a little body there.
Okay,
So then
perfect.
that way, when we're eating our dish, you will be able to take a bite of orange fully
Which
and
is
not just
great.
have the broken up. So as you see, as we did the stir, we broke up those supremes and just the flesh of the oranges in there. Okay? So we want to have a little more body to it. We have a question.
Why do we wait to add the slurry until the very end?
So we can doctor it as we need to. So adding the slurry at the very end is the last piece. We're tightening up the sauce. If we were to let this roll and reduce down, evaporate the waters, fortify the sugars, we wouldn't need any slurry. We wouldn't have to tighten it up due to our time constraint of an hour. We then tighten it up. Traditional Chinese cooking, they add a lot of slurry, so they work with a lot of cornstarch. That's why their sauces are always like very gelatin-like,
That makes
because
sense.
that's the consistency that the cornstarch makes them. You'll know if too much cornstarch is added is once you cool it down and then you're able to plop it down like a jello mold, too much cornstarch. You still want it to be pliable, so almost honey consistency. It won't be as sticky as honey, but it'll have that same type of
Right.
consistency, that texture-wise, as far as the thickness of it. So if we want to get our spoon, check our
Oh, I've got one here.
progress there. Or this little one.
You have one there?
Yeah.
You want a plate?
So see how we're just running off of the spoon there? So we want it to be a little bit tighter than that. All we're gonna do is add a tiny bit of cornstarch, our slurry. And this stuff goes a long way, so that's why it's always best to add less than to add more. If it's too thick, just add more liquid. If it's too thin, make a little slurry and add it. When we're working with this amount of sauce, we have about, I'd say probably like 2.5 cups of sauce there, maybe 3 cups of sauce. A tablespoon of slurry would thicken this like that in no time. You always want to add your slurry when it's at a hot temperature. If it's not almost to a boil when you add it, it won't do anything.
Got it.
And then all of a sudden the temperature will come up and you go, whoa, what happened? That's because it needs that heat to activate. Yeah.
Gotcha. And those are critical things because if you don't do it right, you're gonna get the different result.
Yeah, and if you don't have this thin enough, then it'll clump in there. So a lot of traditional cooking, Thanksgiving time, is when the slurry or the cornstarch is added to the turkey jus to make the gravy.
Right.
They just add it in there, and then that's how you get all those little tiny slurry balls, right?
Exactly.
As opposed to if you just took some of that turkey jus or the broth of that and put it into a bowl and then put cornstarch in there and mix that up to a fine consistency, then pour that into your gravy, you would have a nice even gravy texture.
Well, that's coming right up around the corner, so good tip.
We'll have you be our taster.
Okay.
Little salt and pepper enough on that. A
Oh,
little more.
very orange, but a little more salt and pepper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Always start with less, and then we can add more.
Yep.
So by adding a little bit of salt, we're gonna enhance our flavors. Okay?
Interesting, a lot of sweet
Yeah, for sure. For what
with
we
the
were doing.
oranges in there.
Yep.
Yep.
And we didn't have any. We didn't add any bitterness to it.
No, you didn't.
So if we would have just cut our orange in half and dropped it into the chicken chicken broth with our rosemary, our garlic, and our shallots, then it would have a bitterness to it that you would never be able to detect or understand why, unless you understand why. By having only the zest in here gives that very strong, predominant orange flavor without any bitterness on the aftertaste.
Absolutely.
We got a question?
Could you substitute the shallots for onion, and what's the main difference?
So the shallot is going to be a lot more pungent. It's like a cross between a red onion and a garlic. You could switch it out if you wanted to. A shallot's going to have a more refined flavor as opposed to the onion. If you're using white onion, won't have a whole lot once you've cooked it to this point. A red onion is going to give it a little bit more of a shallot flavor, but not because of it's an onion. So red onions are typically eaten raw and not cooked, as opposed to white and yellow onions, or a sweet onion would be utilized for cooking. So yes, you could substitute if that's what you had. Are you going to get that strong flavor? No, because it is very pungent. When I cut this shallot, it made me cry because that's how strong it was.
Strong.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll check our consistency again. So see how we wipe it off. Let's see. So we start with that clean spoon and we come in and see how it just coats the back of it, stays there.
Yep.
That's what we're looking for. It's not too thick and it's not too runny, so that it'll coat.
Coat only and the rest rolls up.
Yep. And that's really it, as opposed to like
Wonderful.
clumping on it or
Yeah, that's nice.
just being too much, right? All right. Plate up time?
All right, we've got a plate ready.
Your favorite?
Well, because you make it look so beautiful.
Let's see if this will work.
I know where you're headed with that.
Susan?
So what we'll do is
Do we
real.
want to put the rest of those oranges in or wait?
Yeah, I'll do it right here in a second.
That's the last group of oranges.
Like the box, no? Oh, wrong box. So a couple things we could do. We could slice our breast, or we could just cut it in half. For something like that, we might want to lay it and like shingle it on there. Trying to see what it's gonna look like in my head. I like the fact if we like cut it and then just set it on there. So like, do. Nice and medium
Nice and pink
rare.
like we talked about.
Just a touch. So this being our focal point, sure that we can see that. This. To that.
Voila. And I put your drink over here, so you can. Voila, that
And we
looks
have
amazing.
our duck a la orange.
Wow, amazing.
Any questions, anyone?
And share some photos with us. We'd love to see what yours looks like as well. We are going to be out at Trilogy on Sunday night serving champagne before the concert. So any of you Trilogy folks that are going to be out there, we will see you then. Steve and I will be there with Mitch and Karen Gladstone. So we'll be right at the entrance. And Chef, thank you so much. This
You're
turned
very
out
welcome.
amazing.
Thank you.
And thanks to all of you who are joined us this evening. Welcome and enjoy your dinner, and we will see you next month. Bye-bye.
Bye.